What is the only constant in the human body? Great question for Dr. Michael Ash on the Functional Forum.
We can't think that we only have good and we only have bad. Otherwise, we fall back into that same dichotomy where the only good bug's a dead bug. In the middle, Carl Benison, back in 2011 with his team, began to suggest that there was a group of organisms that live within us that have quite a specific role, keystone species, in fact, that provide immune maturation or, if inappropriately mixed by virtue of their constituent contents, because of trauma, medicine, illness, or some form of disease, that the relationship would change, and that rather than tolerance and health, that we end up with persistent, inappropriate inflammation, which is an underlying predisposing cause for most chronic ill health, and that would be a relationship between the 75% of non-communicable disease-associated causes for death versus the 25% for infectious and traumatic disease. And that if inflammation underlies this as the nomenclature, as rather the cause of all of these conditions, then we should look within ourselves to find out where a trigger may sit. And pathobionts are those organisms that by circumstance change to become problematic. And therefore, if we can change them to reverse their problematic element to become tolerant and health-inducing, it opens for us a single point of intervention, that is the gastrointestinal tract, which we can manipulate by gathering appropriate bits of information and then using safe, effective, and reproducible tools. You would think that would require you to know exactly what lives inside the gastrointestinal tract. Well, let me tell you, one, you can't currently do it, and two, I don't think that's actually where you should be spending your time. Because that organism, that massive material that lives inside our gut, has to constantly change from birth to death because we have a constantly changing environment. We stress it throughout our entire lives. And one of the biggest changing circumstances in our environment is our production of food. And food is a significant tool in the manipulation both of the metabolic output of the gut, bacteria, and their composition. Because just like the ecosystem around us, and just like James's ecosystem of interconnected clinicians around the world, humans are also living ecosystems. We are more ecologically diverse than any jungle or forest on the planet. And over the last 50 years, and keep that number in mind because it's important, over the last 50 years, we've changed both our planet's ecosystem and our internal ecosystem faster and more divisively than at any time in human history. In fact, what happens is that Waddington's notion of how we change tissues in our body works terribly well for bacteria inside our gastrointestinal tract. Bacteria, when we originate, are relatively simple in terms of diversity. As we progress through life and different challenges are brought to us, primarily through food and drugs, various choices are available to these organisms. Some will remain exactly the same despite the insults brought to them, and those we refer to as being stable or resistant. Their genes remain the same, their metabolic output remains the same, they may change in number, but they remain functional. There are those that are resilient, that is, that some will die, but there'll be a gene transfer or enough genes left in the remaining organisms that a resilience exists in the human. That is, that we still produce a functionally efficient metabolic output. And we do that because of something called functional redundancy. We acquire a wide range of organisms in order that we can give away some due to trauma and environmental challenges, but retain enough of their genetic functional capability in other species to continue to adapt to our environment. But if we end up with those that have changed, like these green spiky ones here, so they no longer reflect the organisms that we started with, they no longer have functional redundancy, and they can no longer produce the metabolic output that we require to maintain our health, that's when we get dysbiosis.
Thanks so much for watching, and for more great clips like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I've created a special free video just for you called Harnessing the Power of Community in Your Practice, and it'll give you a clinical model practical tools that double as marketing, and strategies to develop a community of your peers. All you have to do is click on the link below.